Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our review of the Champions League League Phase, the Phasening Match Day 4, in which Bayern Munich simply wouldn't relent while Liverpool spent their night booing Trent. Arsenal had more glory days and their friends Tottenham returned to winning ways. Barcelona split the points in a 6-goal thriller, while Juventus' outing was slightly more vanilla. And at some point in this show, I don't quite know when, we're going to have to give flowers to Byrne and Mickey van der Ven. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, the Taylor Rockall's here. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan. I appreciate you continuing to come to me first out of a structural sense, even though Van der Ven and Ruthven would have been a pretty direct rhyme.
Did we find the one thing that rhymes with Ruthven? I think we did.
Yeah. Men, I think it's the only other one I've used. I try to do a lot of combinations of words when I do a rhyming introduction for Graham. It doesn't work quite well.
I can also score goals like Van der Ven as well. You just haven't seen it.
Beautiful run. Beautiful run.
Is that on the FIFA video game you mean, or in real life?
So you've just aged yourself there, Ryan, 'cause it's not called FIFA anymore.
Ha!
So
Old.
joke's on you. Yeah, old. How are you,
Okay.
Ryan Bailey? How are you
Fine.
today? Are you
I
thankful
was
that
fine until a minute ago.
nobody's going to boo you at your workplace today? Although there's still time.
There's still time. We've got a long way to ride for that to not to come to pass. Goodness me, I deserve a booing already, Graham. Joe Larry's also. Joe, how are you?
I'm great. That Van de Ven goal was sensational. It's a shame that it shouldn't win the Puskas, because the Puskas should be about the best individual strike, I think, not about the build-up to it. I would like to gauge the temperature of the room on that take. I think to win the Puskas, you need an outrageous finish, not an outrageous bit of build-up. I think those are separate things in my mind. That great Arsenal goal that makes the rounds on social every once in a while. That's the tiki-taka, all this beautiful stuff, and there's dummies, and it's just poetry in motion. That shouldn't win the Puskas. The only thing that should... Go ahead, Graham. Go ahead.
So hold on. Maradona's goal, 86 against England, widely considered the goal of the century.
No.
Not a Puskas winner.
Tap in.
Correct.
Tap in.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to think about this one, because I often feel like I am the long strike merchant, but I don't know. That feels like a stretch for me. I don't know.
Taylor?
So your contention is that anything outside of the shot shouldn't be considered?
Yep.
I mean, on the one hand, it is that is the goal action. But on the other hand, I think of the moment leading up to the goal. I mean, you are famously the man who hates assists. So I guess I'm not surprised that the lead up to a goal. I know, I'm just saying, the things that build up to the actual strike, I'm not surprised that Joe has less time for. I think the whole sequence could be part of it. Dude, I don't know. It's tricky.
See?
Because you're right. You make a point here, Joe. I had never thought about this before. But when I think about the ones that I'm instantly oh yeah, that's going to win it. It is always the 3-second clip of the shot itself.
It's the thing that makes you go, oh, and not the thing that makes you go, oh. The second
I was doing
thing
that.
doesn't
It was just
win.
longer. It was just 10 seconds of
Too long. Who's got time for that, Graham? Nobody.
The Lamella Rabona is the prime example of that sort of you can clip that and put it out there and everyone just knows that is a ridiculous goal and a beautifully aesthetic goal as well.
Ryan, where do you fall?
I still think it could be considered. It's a grey area. I'll give you it, but
right.
I don't know. Phil Foden scored a goal where it bounced 4 times before it went in.
That's fine.
Against Borussia Dortmund. Do you only count the last bounce? What?
No, I think after the ball has left the foot, basically, or the acrobatic thing, because we can allow a bicycle kick or something like that, right? The scorpion kick, the acrobatic thing that leads to the great moment. But it's a great goal. It's one of my favorite goals ever that Van de Ven scored, and I love Van de Ven. I think he's one of my favorite players playing soccer right now.
Small sample size,
but it's also true. It's a different thing for me. I was talking about this to someone the other day as it relates to end of year awards. And I always want to give fullback some love into the Defender of the Year discussion. And the reality is they never win it, do they? Because the center backs are the ones that everybody thinks about, and the fullbacks get looped in with the attackers. And I've just decided to accept that. So in this situation, I've decided to accept that it was an amazing goal, but it shouldn't win the Puskas. Fight me.
Okay, that's fair enough. So we're saying that Dan Burn should win it for that sort of bending header that somehow went
Yes.
in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why not?
I mean,
very well.
I don't know if you're joking, but I've never seen a header like that before.
It's amazing.
Bend it like
Brilliant.
Burn.
Yeah. Bend it like
It's that he's so tall and doesn't have to break his stride, so he just kind of is running through and just casually hits a screaming header off the post and in. Oh, that goal is lovely. He also has 3 more attacking moments in that game. I didn't know Dan Burn was critical to Newcastle's attacking plans, but here we are.
Yeah. He looked very lonely during that header. No one near him. Poor guy. Looked like he needed a friend.
Probably
Anyway,
used to it.
maybe a defender or two. Anyway, we'll get to that later on. Patreon.com/Total Soccer. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you can find our bonus content, including access to our Discord server, bonus episodes, and bonus video. Do come and support us there if you are so inclined. Thank you very much. But let's get to the action. We'll start off, why don't we, in Paris. Paris Saint-Germain 1, Bayern Munich 2. Luis Diaz had a busy night, didn't he? 2 goals and a red card. Sent off on the stroke half-time following a pretty rash challenge from behind on Achraf Hakimi. It was a yellow card that got upgraded by VAR to a red. Hakimi clearly in pain after that. I think he was in tears. He's got the AFCON coming up in December. The latest that he's got a sprained ankle from that one is expected to keep him out for 6 weeks. That brings him pretty much right up to AFCON. Ousmane Dembele also left this game injured. But besides from the controversies, a fun game. Serge Gnabry had a shot that hit both posts. I love to see that. That's always an enjoyable thing to do. 16 successive wins for Bayern Munich, Taylor, in all competitions. Can they be stopped?
Doesn't seem like it. The question, I think, like heading into this week was they've got Leverkusen at the weekend, then they've got PSG. If they over-prepare for Leverkusen, maybe they get thrashed by PSG. And they rested a lot of players against Leverkusen. Didn't really have a problem there. Then they played all those starters against PSG. Didn't really have a problem there right up until that Luis Diaz sending off. Bayern were completely in control. Seemed really dominant. I think it still shows how good of a team PSG is that even with Bayern looking so comprehensively effective in their press, PSG still found moments and opportunities where they either turned out of pressure individually or played out of it as a team. But it really is that red card at the end of the first half that kind of changes the structure of this game. So it's not as resounding of a defeat as it felt like it was going to be for PSG, but it is still just another comprehensively solid performance from Bayern Munich.
Yeah, it was a statement result for Bayern, and it was on its way to being a statement performance. And in a weird way, you're absolutely right, Taylor, the dynamic of the game changes with that red card. But the way I'm kind of looking at it is that we saw a different side to Bayern after that red card, where, yeah, the game does become a bit of a back-to-the-wall job for them. But I thought we saw them defend and dig deep and stay compact in a way that last season I just don't know if they would have been capable of that same thing. So I just think across the board Bayern have improved quite a bit this season. That forward line it has to be the best forward line in European football right now, and they've still got Musiala to come back from injury in the second half of the season, which is absolutely wild. But those rotations between Kane and Diaz and Gnabry and Elise, and Kane was dropping deep to do his quarterback thing again and play passes forward. And it wasn't just the forward line either. The Athletic had a good breakdown of where Konrad Laimer and Stanisic and even Upamecano had touches of the ball in this game and how they were getting forward as well. So there's just plenty to like about Bayern right now. Yeah. And before this game, I think it was a question: are Bayern the best team in Europe right now? After this game, I think their case for that is really quite strong.
I think, Graham, there's a lot of last year's PSG in this Bayern team, in that they are so incredibly fluid. However fluid you're thinking, they're more fluid than that. And when Kane, I guess, is your 9, you're probably already thinking this team is pretty fluid. He was dropping wildly deep in this game, like deep into the number 6 spot, picking out ridiculous passes. We even still, as much as we talk about how good Harry Kane is on the ball, I think we still regularly underrate just how dangerous he is as a passer. I think in another world, if Harry Kane didn't know how to move off the ball in the box, he could still be like a really high-level professional deep line midfielder. That's how good of a distributor he is. He was amazing on the ball dropping deep in this game. I love that you mentioned the fullbacks, Graham, Laimer, Stanisic, players that are very comfortable in central spaces. I mean, how many times have we seen that for both of those guys throughout their careers? There's so much to like about those guys inverting and finding space. Kimmich, we know, is comfortable playing in central midfield, or he can drift a little bit wider. He can drift higher. And then the front three seems so fluid in this game of picking up different spots. A lot of those descriptors that we just used to describe Bayern, we talked about and praised PSG for last year. And PSG still are that team in a lot of ways. This was not them at their best for reasons maybe we can get into in just a second, even beyond the fact that they lost 2 key starters in the first half of this game and already still weren't at 100% fitness-wise before that. But this PSG team last year, I think what set them apart in so many ways was how effective their players were at moving and rotating and finding that freedom within Luis Enrique's system. And Bayern have so much of those same traits this year, and it's dazzling to watch.
Yeah, another thing that they have, Joe, is their press and how effective they are in the press, Bayern. So they went man for man, Bayern against PSG in this game. They pushed Upamecano into midfield to get onto Fabian Ruiz. The other side of that was, so what was happening was Konrad Laimer was coming centrally, as we've kind of outlined already. And the one sort of crack in the PSG press was Kvaratskhelia wasn't quite as sharp to follow him inside, and so that was then opening up the space for Laimer to get in there, and all of a sudden Bayern are into the attack. So that's one thing that I just think, look, Bayern seem to have improved from last season. They seem to have gotten sharper and more fluid, and PSG, look, they've had injuries, and Desiree Doué is missing at the moment, and Dembele only lasts 25 minutes in this game, and so maybe they're still getting up to speed. It wouldn't surprise me if PSG really round into form again in the second half of the season. But they have also dropped off a little bit, and I think Bayern were able to exploit that, certainly in the first half.
Yeah. Taylor, as we've sort of outlined, I think we saw the best of Bayern in this game, in a game of two halves for them. They were rampant and very brave with the press in the first half, and then in the second half, some really good defending. How much credit do we give to Vincent Kompany as a coach for the evolution of this team and what we're seeing right now? How much of it is the alchemy of the players they've got? How much, is he reaching a new level as a coach, Vincent Kompany?
I am going to turn that question to Graham and Joe after I say this little bit, because I can't tell if I'm just being overly critical of a manager trying to manage a team that was trying to see out a win, playing a man down. But I was really confused by his substitutions, because he makes one at halftime. He brings off Gnabry, and that makes sense. When you're down a man, you want to kind of change things and be a little bit more defensively sound. But I felt like he really held off until, the 84th minute, I think is when Kim Min-jae comes on, something around there. But in between those two substitutions, it felt to me like you could see the fatigue, both physical and specifically mental, with Bayern. When you are exhausted and when you've been running and pressing and working your socks off, yes, you're going to feel tired, but there also is a mental drop-off that focus can slip. And it felt like so many PSG chances as the second half went on were Bayern dropping off a little bit too much, like maybe only everybody being 24 yards from goal, but then the back line stepping up at the same time. So you had a space for balls to go into, but you also had space for players to shoot from distance and find passes. And when Bayern did try to close down, it was usually sort of individual 1v1 or sometimes 2v1. And so they'd get passed around, and it just felt for a moment there like they're going to give up another goal or they're going to give up an equalizer because they are exhausted. And I could not figure out why he wasn't making changes. At the same time, they don't give up another goal. They do get the win. Kompany sprints onto the pitch at the end, celebrates with the players. It feels like a very harmonious squad. But I'm left with that confusion of it could have gone the other way very easily with PSG getting so many chances, but it didn't. So I'm not sure how much credit or blame to give anybody.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to kind of unpick, Taylor, because there's a world where, PSG get an equaliser. Here I'm thinking of I can't think of too many clear-cut chances other than the second Joao Neves, is it a header? He scores the volley, right? And then there's a header that he has.
It's that, it's like Lee Kang-in has 4 or 5 balls from the exact same spot that either fizz just wide of the back post, where if somebody had gotten on the end of it, it's a tap-in. He has a few good balls in for Gonzalo Ramos when he comes on that don't always connect or just at least ask questions, lead to Bayern conceded corners. It just felt like again, it doesn't end up leading to a goal. So it's not as though it's a crisis or Bayern made obvious mistakes, but it felt like it's a flip of the coin. It could have easily been turned in the other way. Upamecano has the one where he tries to close down and almost gets a foot to it and then doesn't at the last second. And if he puts a foot on that, that's going in as an own goal. He's going to deflect it the wrong way. It just felt like Bayern were living on a knife's edge.
Yeah, I guess where I land with that is I thought their penalty box defending in those moments was was decent enough, and it's a difficult balance to strike. When you go down to 10 men, particularly away to PSG, the European champions, you're just never going to be in control of that game fully. And so I think of how Enzo Maresca reacted to, and you remember Chelsea going down to 10 men against Manchester United, a couple months ago. And he basically took off every attacking player to the point that Chelsea it was inevitable that Man United were going to score goals. And Kompany didn't do that in this game. Yeah, he makes a couple changes, but he still maintains players who are able to absorb the ball and give a little bit of relief to Bayern in that game. And I think in those moments that just gave them enough oxygen to survive through the game. So, yeah, they were never going to be in full control, but I think they did just enough to see it out in the second half.
And to go back to your framing, Ryan, about does this result in what we've seen from Bayern this year tell us something about Vincent Kompany's improvement as a coach? Maybe. I think that's possible. I don't view this, to the surprise of no one, this Bayern team as a team that is Vincent Kompany's masterpiece. I look at this as an incredibly well-constructed squad that has the tools in it to be incredibly positionally versatile and skillful in every phase of the game. Now, where I will give credit to Kompany is, Graham, you mentioned the man-to-man press for Bayern. The press was awesome for them in this game. It was risky and it was effective. And I think Kompany does deserve real credit for that. You mentioned Upamecano stepping forward to Fabian Ruiz. The matchup that I was watching most closely was Joshua Kimmich pressing up on Vitinha, because we know how Vitinha is so crucial to everything that PSG do in build-up, and Ruiz is as well. But Vitinha is almost always deeper and the deepest member of that midfield trio. And Kimmich, even if he had to make a 40-yard sprint to go close him down, Kimmich was closing him down. And he wasn't perfect at doing that because Vitinha is amazing. He's going to find space off the ball. He's going to move off the ball and relocate and all of those things. But Kimmich did a really good job, and Bayern in general did a really good job. PSG, for their part, and this is a things can be two things situation, PSG were uncharacteristically sloppy in this game. I mean, the second goal is Luis Diaz just taking the ball off of Marquinhos, and Marquinhos doesn't even see him. That is an unacceptable mistake in a moment like this, when you're trying to stack results. PSG are going to be fine. They're going to make it out of the phasing. It's all good for them. But this was both a bad day for them, truly, and a situation that left me very impressed with how aggressive Bayern could be, and Kompany's appetite to make risky choices and the effectiveness of those choices. I was really impressed by all of that.
Yeah, PSG was 71% possession, 25 shots to Bayern's 9, and 1.95 XG, higher XG than Bayern as well. But hey, they didn't get the points. That's the most important stat. And Bayern Munich are one of 3 perfect teams in the phasing thus far, along with Arsenal and Inter. Congrats to them. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go to Anfield and see how Liverpool got one over Real Madrid. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Champions League phase, the phasing, match day 4 review, not preview. Let's go to Anfield. Liverpool 1, Real Madrid.
I can't believe you got through all the difficult parts and then stumbled over review.
It's very me. It's very me, Graham. But here we are. Well, the editing machine is still broken. We keep it in. Liverpool back to their best. Alexis McAllister with the header from a Dominic Szoboszlai free kick. Trent Alexander-Arnold returning to Anfield, starting on the bench for Real Madrid. A mural of Trent was vandalised this week. He was booed when he came out.
Take that.
The mural, someone had written "Adios El Rata" on it, which I've done enough Duolingo to know that means goodbye rat. So there you go. So we can touch on Trent in a second, but obviously Dominic Szoboszlai had a superb night as well. Thibaut Courtois was fantastic in nets as well. Duncan Alexander messaged on the socials that since the start of the 2022 final, 23% of saves that Thibaut Courtois has made in the Champions League have been against Liverpool. Wow, that's a stat.
Wild. I also saw that as well. And had it not been for Courtois, then maybe this scoreline is more emphatic in Liverpool's fashion. Yeah, he's in their favour, excuse me. Yeah, he's just the best goalkeeper in the world. Doesn't make mistakes. I've said it before and I'll say it again.
He's superb. Very good. Taylor, where would you like to start? Would you like to start with maybe the narrative of Trent returning back home, if you will? He didn't get a rousing reception, shall we say.
I mean,
he didn't get any points.
He got a rousing reception, just not maybe rousing in a positive way.
It was outstanding.
Not the one he wanted.
Reception.
I like.
It's my new favorite
I almost think Xabi Alonso made a mistake bringing him on, because when I watched this I watched this game twice. When I watched it the first time, like all of my notes are about the atmosphere and how rowdy it was and loud it was, and like this feels like a proper Champions League night. And then rewatching it, like that really isn't the case until Trent comes on. And that seems to be when Anfield is like, that guy, that's the guy we don't like. Everybody get him. And then the whole stadium is up for it. And every time he does anything, there's boos. Anytime Liverpool do anything in response, there are massive cheers. And it felt like the frustration and anger towards him was palpable. And at the same time, like with the reasons for him leaving and the questions about like, why would you leave this club that's so successful to go to another club? You've had so much joy here. You're such an established part of the team. It feels like this was also the fans trying to kind of remind themselves even that like they're bigger than this one player. We've got Conor Bradley. We don't need him. Those songs were especially lovely as well.
I mean, Conor Bradley was real good in this game. I will say that much. I mean, Graham, it sounded like you agreed with Taylor's question about maybe Xabi should have left him on the bench. You can't do that, can you? You just can't.
No.
Can't bring the player that you signed, and there was a lot of controversy back to his old stomping grounds, and you can't just have him sit on the bench. Like that is there is not anything more embarrassing in this sport, and not scoring an own goal, not any of those things that you can think of. I don't think there's anything more embarrassing or humiliating than not getting to play in that situation when you're healthy and able to help your team. I 100% think you should have played.
Counterpoint, he comes on and scores an own goal. That's pretty embarrassing and humiliating.
I get subbed off again.
Where it didn't sit
Interesting
well
points.
with me was kind of the theatre of bringing him on as the only sub. Like look, he's an excellent player. Clearly, he should be playing in these games. But I do think there is a duty of care as a manager of like people to look after the person. So I think you either start him, or the kind of compromise would be to bring him on in sort of like a flurry of substitutions. Rather than this, it was like all eyes on the stadium on this one person coming onto the pitch, and I just think it wasn't nice. It wasn't very pleasant in that moment.
Can I go a step further and say my theory, Graham, is that this helped Liverpool win. The atmosphere that Trent's presence created and the way it got the crowd up and the way it probably got the team up as well played a big part, in my opinion, in Liverpool actually getting the 3 points here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is where an elite athlete would be able to answer that better than I, because I don't really have the information. Well, those days are behind me, Joe. Table tennis days. The atmospheres at the Scottish Nationals were quite hot. But
Did you ever get an adios il rata when you returned to the table?
When I left Bridge of Allen Table Tennis Club. Yeah, it's quite the departure. But yeah, I mean, maybe. And it was certainly sort of like the headline or one of the headlines out of the game, hence why we're talking about it first. I will say there's been a lot of hand-wringing from the kind of like the professional class of the English football media. And I think there is a divide between what is sort of like professionally rational, which is this was an irrational reaction from Liverpool fans for a player who gave us all for that club, had really achieved all that he could have achieved, and has gone to another country. He's not gone to a rival. He's not gone to Manchester United. He's not gone to Manchester City. He's gone to a team in another country where he'll rarely face Liverpool. I know he's done it relatively soon here, but by and large, they won't come up against each other. I also understand that football fandom is not rational. And so I can honestly say that if I was in that position, there's a line, of course, like abuse. A lot of the abuse I've seen on social media has crossed that line. But in that stadium, I think booing, I honestly can't rule out that if that was me as a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't be one of those fans booing, because I just think that's the way football is. So I just wanted to say my piece on that, because I think every podcast and every article that I've read has said like, oh, unacceptable, Liverpool fans being childish. Well, I mean, fandom is kind of childish in a certain sense, so I can kind of understand it.
I mean, it's also like hand in hand with groupthink, right? Like if you're in a stadium where everyone is booing the player and you're having a good time and maybe you've had a beverage or two, you might be like, yeah, I'll boo that guy too. I'm part of the group. We're all pulling together. We're all doing it for the team. And you might kind of forget that that's a human who you were cheering for 12 months ago.
It's how you got carried away when you went to the capital that January, wasn't it, Teddy? It's a great thing.
Yeah, weirdly, it was January 7th for me. I was very late and things were awkward. I don't really want to relitigate the whole Trent Alexander-Arnold thing, because that's an entire episode unto itself. Like, what I kept wondering was, like, am I forgetting? Like, did he agitate for a move? Did he publicly criticize Liverpool? Did he fall out with a manager or players or the ownership? Did he not get paid what he wanted? Like, are there circumstances that either, like, he felt his hand was forced, or that it feels like the fans feel like he forced his way out in an acrimonious way? Because ultimately, I tend to believe the idea that, like, if you are booing that player and showing how much it hurt you that he left, you're showing that, like, he left for a bigger club, if that makes sense. That, like, because if they left for a smaller club, you'd be like, all right, cool, I guess go make your money, go to Saudi Arabia, whatever. That doesn't bother me. But I feel like when you lose your mind over, like, a player you really enjoy going to a perceived bigger club, you're sort of showing an inferiority complex there. I went through this when I was a huge Cristiano Ronaldo fan, and then he left for Real Madrid, and it felt like you didn't really want to be here, and it bummed me out, and I didn't like it, but you're gone now, and I'm sad, but also I'm okay with it. And I think by contrast, it felt like all the Liverpool supporters were like, haha, in your face, that guy. And I was just kind of confused by that level of animosity.
Yeah, I think Liverpool fans' complaint is that he gave a couple interviews where he talked about wanting to be the club captain and spend his whole career at Liverpool and how this was his home, and then all of a sudden he was running down his contract to get a free transfer. And I think a lot of fans are unhappy that they didn't get a big transfer fee for him. They got, £10 million for him so that he could play in the Club World Cup, which is a thing that happened this summer. I can't really understand fans getting upset at transfer fees. It just seems like something that maybe fans shouldn't be too worried about. But I can understand, I can interpret that booing as sort of insecurity over how Real Madrid and Barcelona, to a certain extent, although not so much now, they just are always going to have a prestige over even the biggest Premier League clubs. And I liken it to, and I made this analogy before we started recording, I'll explain it. Lewis Hamilton joining Ferrari. Ferrari are a bit of a mess. The team that he left have a more competitive car, Mercedes. But Ferrari are Ferrari, man. There's a romance around them, a prestige around them, the history, the red suit. It's all the same with Real Madrid. All the history, you walk through
Swap
that
the
door,
red
all
suit
the
thing,
European...
though. But yeah.
Like
yeah,
Santa?
Well... Like Santa, yeah. Lewis Hamilton wanted to wear the Santa suit. Real Madrid have got the all-white thing, but you get the point I'm making, and I don't know whether that'll ever disappear. Certainly not for this generation where Trent Alexander-Arnold watches, the Clasico when it's Messi versus Ronaldo and they're winning European Cups for fun, and a couple of them against Liverpool in those finals. So, yeah, I think I don't think there's much more to it than Real Madrid waved a lot of money in front of him, and they're Real Madrid, and he wanted to do something else.
Question for Graham and Ryan specifically. Probably incorrectly, I think I've always assumed that that allure of Real Madrid and Barcelona existed for players on the continent, for players in other continents, specifically South America. But I feel like I always had this idea that English players were sort of no, I am English, I play for my English club, I want to be with an English club, and that's what English players have done the majority of their careers. There was a period when it was maybe a list of 5 or 10 players who played outside of England ever. And so I think that's maybe also part of it for me, is that it feels odd for an English player to be that is where I want to be, that is the height of footballing. Am I mistaken in that? Is it much more ubiquitous in the UK?
I think there's something to it, definitely, because I mentioned also off air, when you're a Beckham, when you're a Michael Owen, when you're that kind of player, there's only one sort of level, there's only one more step you can take if you sort of reach the top of the tree in the Premier League, and that is arguably Real Madrid, because of the allure of that. And I will say, on the broadcast, Peter Schmeichel was on the ground where he was in Liverpool, and he said words to the effect of, I lived in Manchester for decades, but I've never seen rain like this. It's horrendous here. So if you live with that, and then you could go and live in Madrid for a few years, there's probably a bit of an allure to that too.
Yeah, and I think previous generations
central, arid, landlocked Madrid. Who doesn't want that?
I like Madrid. This is a nice city.
The sun comes out there. There's a key difference.
Yeah, and I think in the past, Barcelona, so few English players have played for Barcelona because they just weren't good enough. I mean, technically for Barcelona, and you look at the players who Real Madrid went after. They went after Beckham. They went after Owen. They did go after the best English players. So I kind of think that allure's always been there. Lineker went to Barcelona in when was that, the 80s or whatever?
Yeah, after the World Cup.
Mark Hughes, a Welshman, but nonetheless.
Joe, if we could touch on the game for a couple of minutes.
There's a game.
What did Liverpool do right here? I suppose that a big part of it was the midfield, having McAllister, having Graham Birchall, and having Szoboszlai having the game of his life as well. Having that midfield solid 3 in place seemed to help them a lot to get back to what may be their best.
Very much so. And I think we saw Slot build out of a double pivot a little bit more in this game, and I think that gave Liverpool some stability, building from the back through Real Madrid. There were a lot of good things happening in this game for Liverpool. I thought they were comprehensively the better team. Mbappe was kept fairly quiet. Vinicius Jr. was kept fairly quiet. And I want to give credit to that last bit to Connor Bradley, who I thought had a really, really good game. And it would not surprise me, Ryan, to what you said earlier about Liverpool being helped by Alexander-Arnold and the atmosphere around that situation, if Connor Bradley specifically was helped by that, because I thought he was good defensively against one of the best 1v1 wingers in the world. And in possession, he was unbothered by pressure. He had good quick touches around pressure when it was coming his way, dynamic enough to break forward down the wing, either as an overlapping presence or as an underlapping presence. I thought he had a great game, and I would expect that we're going to see a lot more minutes out of Connor Bradley, even after other options were brought in around him in the summer window. I thought pretty much everything Liverpool did in this game, they did right, or darn close to it. On the flip side, with Real Madrid, I know this was not Xabi Alonso's first dip into the cookie jar that is labeled Camavinga on the right wing, but man, I didn't care for it. I gotta make that very clear. This felt a bit to me like the Arne Slot big brain Szoboszlai right back thing that's happened throughout the Champions League throughout the season so far that now is not a thing anymore. I understand that Camavinga at right wing had some impact in El Clasico. It was dreadful in this game. It was absolutely dreadful. There was nothing coming down that right side for Real Madrid in the attack in this match. I thought it was going to change at halftime, and it did for a little bit, where Arda Güler then moved out wide and Camavinga moved centrally. And then after 20 minutes, it flipped right back around again. And it was hard to watch, man. This was a bad Real Madrid performance. So again, both of these things are true, where Liverpool were really good. The press was good in this game. They were effective. They created chances. And also for Real Madrid, they were just straight up bad. Like, they were relatively toothless in this match.
Yeah.
They were unbalanced. And as Graham already said, if not for Courtois, who was excellent in this game, save after save, back-to-back saves on some set pieces. I mean, he was amazing. If not for Courtois, this probably would have been at least 2-0.
Yeah, it was a muddled performance by Real Madrid. They were overmatched in terms of numbers at the back at moments, when Liverpool had like a 6-on-4. I counted that 3 or 4 times in the game. And then Dean Huijsen, who was quite effective on the ball. I thought he was quite good at progressing the ball out from the back, but out of possession seemed like Alonso wanted to get him on Szoboszlai by, jumping him up out the back line. But then he would go searching for the ball at moments in a way that just he would search too much. Basically, he would end up like in a position of the pitch that was just a mile away from the defensive line, so that when Liverpool were into attacking transition, he's like 20 yards away from where he really needs to be, and that then left Liverpool left Liverpool players free in dangerous areas. I think the best example of this was the Szoboszlai chance that Wirtz puts on a plate for him in the first half, and then Courtois saves it, as it was canon for this game. That comes from Huijsen. If you look at where he is, he's a mile up the pitch because he's tried to jump onto Szoboszlai and just completely missed it, and they've played around him. So yeah, it was a strange performance by Real Madrid. Some of the selections that Xabi Alonso made didn't work, and then in an attacking sense, it didn't feel like they had many ideas beyond trying to isolate the fullbacks. And so when those fullbacks, Robertson included, Bradley was excellent in this game, but I want to make sure I give Robbo his flowers as well, because he's taken some flack in 2025. But when that didn't work for Real Madrid, they didn't really have anything else to go to, so they need to improve on this.
Yeah, a lot of it, to me, maybe it's too simplistic, but it seemed like a lot of Real Madrid players individually had bad performances. Camavinga, Huijsen had a nightmare, Güler wasn't great, Vinicius probably wasn't up to much, whereas a lot of Liverpool players seem to really play above themselves, like McAllister, like Szoboszlai, like Conor Bradley as well. So that makes a big difference, certainly, too. I wanted to also note that Gareth Bale was in the CBS studio on Tuesday, and they had Dominic Szoboszlai doing a post-match interview. I think it was with Carragher and Schmeichel, and he's very eloquent. He's a very, very impressive guy, actually, Dominic Szoboszlai. And there was a point where they were trying to get Bale into the conversation, and they go to Szoboszlai, would you like to ask Gareth Bale a question? And he's like, No. Why? You're being interviewing me. Why would we do this? And then Gareth Bale, they're like, Gareth, have you anything to say to Dominic? They were desperate to try and get him in this back and forth. It was a very odd moment of broadcasting. And
really earning his fee there, Gareth Bale, it sounds like.
I'm all right.
At the end of the show, it was really good to have you, Gareth. If you want to come back tomorrow on Wednesday's show, we'd be delighted to have you. And he's like, yep, sure. Didn't show up on Wednesday. Maybe because
he had a tea time. He had a tea time, Ryan.
Yeah,
come on.
He's holding his driver on a nice par 4. I hope on Wednesday is what he was doing, indeed. But congrats to Liverpool getting back on track with that big win over Real Madrid. Let's take one more quick break. When we come back, we're going to go through the rest of the games. Lots of action to talk about. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our review of the Champions League. League phase colon the phasing match day 4. Slavia Prague 0, Arsenal 3. Saka with a penalty and a Merino brace in this one. Max Dowman becoming the youngest ever player in the Champions League at 6 years old and 15 days, I think it is, something like that. Arsenal's clean sheets run, now 8 matches in all competitions, matching a club record from 1903. Who'd have thunk it? Slavia Prague had a penalty claim turned down by VAR late in this game. They were sweating on that clean sheet run in that moment. But Arsenal, 10 in a row, doing pretty well, I would say. Congratulations to them. Napoli 0, Eintracht Frankfurt 0. Not much to say about this game, not too interesting, but Napoli obviously putting in a better performance than their most recent Champions League game, that 6-2 defeat. That was PSV, wasn't it? They lost that one too in the last round. Atletico Madrid 3, Union Saint-Gilloise 1. Julian Alvarez, Conor Gallagher and Marcus Llorente with the goals for Atleti in this one. Conor Gallagher's quite a pleasing strike. Hit it really hard. That's what we'd like to see.
Top corner. Yep.
Yeah. Pushkas nominee, arguably. Probably not.
Well, we'll have to ask Joe about that.
We will.
Depends.
We'll need a final judgment. Bodo Glimt 0, AS Monaco 1. Hey, Joe, who got the goal for Monaco? Who was it?
Ballo. We talked about this earlier in the week. Ballo getting a really nice goal, good kind of high-roofed, sort of. I don't know if it was quite roofed, but good finish with the left foot towards the near post. I'm assuming as listeners listening to this episode, the USMNT roster is out for November. He's got to be on it. So look forward to that.
Is Tuesday night in the Arctic Circle playing Bodo Glimt, is that the Champions League equivalent, the 2025 equivalent of Can You Do It on a rainy night in Stoke?
Yes.
On a Tuesday night.
And Ballo can. You better believe he can.
We got the answer.
Yeah. Artificial turf means nothing to him, Graham. He can roof it into the net in deepest, darkest Norway. Congratulations. Juventus 1, Sporting 1. Spalletti's first Champions League game in Turin, this one. I mean, it was a game. It was a game. Vlahovic's goal cancelled out.
We're done. Don't even try. Don't even try to give me any detail about this match. You said it all perfectly.
There we go. Yeah. Another draw to speak of. Olympiacos 1-1 with PSV. Joe, who got the goal for PSV? Who was it? Joe.
Rico. We talked about this earlier in the week, too. Nice finish. Good right-footed effort. Late equalizer. Good for him, man. Good for him.
Good for him, indeed. And also good for Mickey van der Ven, the aforementioned, and his wonder. EA Sports 25. Is that what it's called, Graham?
That is what it's called.
Yeah, that style of goal Mickey van der Ven got in the
Just call it
4-0
FC,
win.
Ryan. That'll make you sound younger. FC. It's FC. That's what they say. No.
Not going to do it. I'm going to call it
Okay.
FIFA still. Is that okay?
Stay old.
There we
Yep.
go. Brendan Johnson with a brace and a red card. Fun. There we go. Tottenham back to winning ways.
Wow.
On this stage.
That was a trend this week, apparently.
Is there a name for that? Is that like the hard man's hat trick or something? You know, like what's the brace and a red card?
The Luis Diaz hat trick or the Brendan Johnson hat trick? Which one do we want to go with?
Well, I think it's got to be. I think of that as being a bit more Luis Diaz than I do Brendan Johnson. But I feel like it needs a more general term because I don't think Luis Diaz quite deserves it. You know, I think he needs to be even more fiery to have that named after him. We'll think
Who was that? Was it Kennedy in the Copa Lib final? John
Kennedy.
John Kennedy.
John Kennedy. Yeah, I think that's who we should name it after.
Okay,
John
done.
Kennedy.
Sold.
Yeah, that's the most famous usage of that name I can think of. Very good. We'll call it Pulling a Kennedy. Oh, that sounds wrong. Let's go to Wednesday's game. Paphos 1, Villarreal 0. Cypriot champions Paphos picking up their first ever win in the Champions League proper as they stun Villarreal in this one. Arguably result of the round, this one, with Paphos getting the win here. They were only formed 11 years ago. They've won only one of their 10 matches in this competition this season. That's including qualifiers. They've lost just one of their 10 matches in the competition this season, and that was to Bayern Munich. David Luiz. He wasn't pulling a Luis Diaz. He played the full 90 in this one. Karabag 2, Chelsea 2. Karabag's first point ever over an English team. Alejandro Garnacho with the second half equaliser, preventing what could have been, Graham, an embarrassing loss for Chelsea in this one. They struggled a bit on the defensive side.
Karabag, they're going to win the whole thing. I mean, I've been making that joke for weeks, but the further we get into the phasing, the more likely it seems that they're going to make the next round at least, and they really could have won this game because they had Chelsea rocking at points. I watched this one in full because it was the early game on the Wednesday night, and there was a period from about the 25th minute until the end of the first half where Chelsea just couldn't handle Karabag and the number of players that they were sending forwards on the break. Jaro Hato had an absolute nightmare of a game. It's his mistake that leads to the first goal, and then he concedes the penalty for the second one, and there were other chances as well that were down to him making a mistake or losing a man inside the box, so a bit of a disaster class from him. But yeah, I thought, having watched Karabag play Scottish teams in recent seasons, I thought they were going to be absolute no-hopers this season, and they do have a little bit of quality. I'm not saying that this wasn't a bit of an upset drawing against Chelsea, but Leandro Andrade, he looks quality. He's a real threat in kind of like the withdrawn second striker role. Their fullbacks, Elvin on the left and then Silva on the right, they were really effective, quick to get forward, and I was just struck by the ambition. Even late in the game, Karabag had a couple opportunities to win it from 2-2, so they're not sort of playing backs to the wall football. They're really going for it this season, and they're getting results.
Decent length of away trip as well for an English team to go to.
That might be a factor as well. Although I imagine Chelsea are flying in relative comfort, or not even relative comfort, just comfort for anyone, comfort for a king, I'd imagine. I think you can get like planes now that have sort of like bedrooms on them.
You can. I can't.
Austin Powers had one. It was circular. Don't you remember in the movie?
Yeah,
I'm just not here for any European team complaining about travel. Like I'm just really not. Cry me a river. You'll be all right.
Very well. Ajax 0, Galatasaray 3, Taylor. Victor Osimhen bossing it once again for Gala here. A hat-trick hero, 2 of which came from penalties, both given for handballs. Osimhen is now the top scorer in the competition with 6 goals. Ajax have had the 4th straight defeat handed to them here. They are on 0 points and minus 13 goal difference. Herboy.
They did not look good. They did not look good at all, the Ajax. And really, this could have been so much worse were it not for Remco Pasveer, the goalkeeper for Ajax, who, like, it genuinely could have been 6 or 7-0. He pulls out some ridiculous saves in this one early and late and in between. He has, like, a sprawling one that he has no business saving off of an Osimhen control in the box. He does, like, for anybody like me who ever thought juggling was dumb, and I was wrong, by the way, but, like, watch this shot from Osimhen, because he controls it with 3 defenders around him, juggles for a moment, and then hits an absolute thunder bastard of a volley, to use a term that we haven't used in quite some time. And Pasveer is able to keep it out with the one hand. I think he gets a wrist to it, but all the same, there's that one. There's another one that he tips onto the post later in the game. It could have been absolutely awful for Ajax, and kind of was. For Galatasaray, man, are they fun. They are wide open. A better team playing better football will probably rip them apart, but a team that is not functioning or trying to defend is not going to do that. And Osimhen has the opener, then he has the 2 penalties that Ryan talked about. I have to pause for a moment to say, I don't understand the physics of his penalties. For people who haven't seen it, he does a somewhat big run-up, and it's the usual approach until about 2 yards from the actual ball, and then he does 40 steps, like little teeny tiny stutter steps, and then he ends up hitting it. The first one he buries into the bottom left corner to the keeper's right. The second one he goes the other way and hits it into, like, the top corner. I don't understand how he gets the power he does behind it while doing that run up and killing all momentum, but he does, and he took them well, and he scored a hattie, and credit to him, it was not the Luis Diaz hat trick. It was an actual hat trick.
It was indeed.
Hard man
to
hat
him.
trick.
Yeah. Club Brugge 3, Barcelona 3, 6-goal thriller in Belgium here. Lamine Yamal scoring. Actually, I've written in my notes he scored a fantastic goal, but he was only a tap-in on the finish, so it's not a Puskás contender, sadly. Barcelona came back from behind 3 times to draw this one, and Bruges had a winner in injury time chalked off by VAR, so lucky with that one too. I suppose, Graham, this is the kind of game where both teams will be unhappy with the point, I think.
Please, nobody ever take this Barcelona team away from me. Like, just laughing all the way through this game. It became clear, so this one was played on the Wednesday night, and Tuesday night it was quite clear there were, like, 2 standout games. Wednesday night was a bit of a grab bag where I wasn't totally sure where my eye was drawn on at least my primary screen, and very quickly it became apparent it was the Club Brugge versus Barcelona game. I love Barcelona. I think Bruges have a lot of quality as well. They absolutely thumped Rangers in qualifying, so I had a little bit of preview of their quality in those 2 games, and they have carried it into the Champions League proper this season. I think Solis' quality, I think he's going to end up in the Premier League or a big European league soon. Carlos Forbes was a real threat down the right side, scores a couple goals in this game. There was a disallowed goal at the end for a foul on Chesney. A penalty to Bruges was overturned as well. Just complete nuts, and Barcelona had chances as well. I'm really not convinced you can win a Champions League playing this way that Barcelona do, especially when the offside trap seems to not be working as well this season as it was last season. I know that there was chat about the high line last season as well. It was basically the biggest talking point about this Barca team, but it just feels like teams are having even more chances against them this season. So that's a big question mark against Barcelona, but man, I love watching them. They haven't kept a clean sheet in an away game since the opening game of the season, and they have defensive trouble in pretty much every game that they play. They had trouble against Elche at the weekend. Bruges scored 3, could have scored 5 here, but then they've got players like Lamine Yamal and Marcus Rashford is on fire and Pedri and all these brilliant attacking players. So yeah, just consistently the best team to watch in Europe at the moment, or most entertaining team to watch.
There we go. Man City made it very comfortable 4-1 win over Borussia Dortmund. Phil Foden with a brace in this one. Erling Haaland netting his 27th goal for club and country this season. That's quite a lot. Phil Foden, as I noted earlier in the show, I think it was his first goal, where he places it so perfectly, but it actually bounced 4 times before it went in. It bobbled in, but it was a beautifully struck shot as well. So Phil Foden is He's back again. I think he's been back again 3 times this season already.
Yeah,
But
we've
he's
said
back
that
again now.
before. Yeah, I mean, he was brilliant in this game. It was broadly a very comfortable evening for Man City, who were clearly the better team. I thought this game was all about Phil Foden. And the reason he was able to find so much space in the sort of Phil Foden pocket, which we haven't seen him in a lot over the last season and a half, but basically the way City were set up, they had Doku on the left and Savinho on the right, and those two players kept the width. And Dortmund just never got to grips with how they were being pinned back as a defensive unit and how that was opening space through the middle. So yeah, the finish for the first Foden goal, is really nice, but there's no pressure on the ball at any point. Like from the pass from Reinders into Foden, who then gets turned and has 15 yards around him to run into and then get the shot away. And that was kind of just the trend of the game that Dortmund were never able to get to grips with.
Newcastle 2, Athletic Club 0. Newcastle love beating a team in red and white stripes. That's exactly what they did, courtesy of the aforementioned Dan Burns super header and another header from Joe Linton as well. Taylor, good recovery from that weekend loss to West Ham for Newcastle.
It was indeed. And Newcastle, I think, generally in good form, 6 wins and 2 losses in their last 8 games, and looked comprehensively the stronger team in this one. Joe Linton has one chalked off early for a very marginal offside call, but was involved throughout and felt like he was just inevitably going to get a goal at some point because of how central he was to Newcastle's attacking plans. But then Dan Burn just pops up and gets a wide open header. The power header off the post, it took some pain off the post, I assume. Such was the power behind it. But Joe Linton, not a small figure himself, and the two of them just kind of absolutely dominated Athletic Club in this one.
They did, indeed. Atalanta with the 1-0 win at Marseille. Substitute Lazar Samadic scoring dramatically late on in this one. Stopped Atalanta getting another draw. They've had 7 in the league already this season. They love a draw, Joe, but we also saw some Yunus Musa minutes in this one.
Yeah, we did. Musa came off the bench, played the last 15 plus. He's still alive. He still exists. This is just his second appearance for Atalanta over the last month or so. Gives the ball away on his first touch, but then settled in really well and looked very comfortable under pressure, helped Atalanta build from the back. He had some really nice moments in this game. He is not, because the U.S. 17 roster has just dropped, he is not in the U.S. roster for this upcoming window. It seems like he's still got some work to do. The goal that you mentioned, Ryan, from Samadzic was a great goal. It's a long-range banger, 89th minute. It is the game winner. It's a relief for Atalanta because Charles de Ketelaere had missed a penalty earlier in the game, and so they'd already had an opportunity that went awry. But it was also controversial because there was a handball shout in Atalanta's own box seconds before. It's not given. It sure seems like Marseille stopped playing a little bit, and then Atalanta raced down the other way, and Samadzic scores that goal. Again, great goal, good win for Atalanta. A little dicey there at the end.
Sacre bleu, play to the whistle, Marseille. What can we
Right?
say? Yeah. Benfica 0, Bayer Leverkusen 1. Patrick Schick, the difference maker for Leverkusen this one. Benfica still pointless, or Jose Mourinho's Benfica, to give them their full name. One other game to mention, Inter Milan 2, Kairat Almaty 1. Inter are now 4 for 4 in the competition, along with Bayern and Arsenal. They're perfect. Lautaro with his Augusto also scoring in this one. And that, Taylor, is another round of the phasening. Do you feel phasened?
We did it. I feel phasened. The phasening has been phased, and such is the phasening.
Set your phasening. Very good indeed. Let's wrap up this episode by saying, once again, thank you very much, Taylor Rockwell.
Thank you very much, my friend, and my friends, all 3.
Thank you, Graham Ruthven.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And thank you very much, Joe Lowry.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Listener Mostest, for listening to this endeavour with us. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show if you'd like to support us. A please and a thank you to everybody who does so. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.